So I just made it to Amsterdam. The flight was like an hour and 20 minutes. Passport control, however, was 2 hours and 20 minutes. I don't know why, but the worst airport control experience I've ever had. I wanted to die by the end of it. I haven't eaten since like 7 a.m. because I thought I would get there and it would be like a late lunch type of situation, but no, now it's 5 p.m. So I'm gonna go get some fries because at least I'm here now. And yeah, I'm gonna check out a few places I've been meaning to, but I'm excited to explore even though the beginning was not great. Let's go. The next morning, I officially started my trip, heading off to get some coffee and a cinnamon bun, which I ate in the park next to the Gogh Museum, which I had booked for 9 a.m. right when it opens. I would definitely recommend booking this well in advance, as it does sell out quite quickly. I had seen some of his work in Paris, but the collection at this museum is so extensive, with so many more of his self-portraits and other works. What was really interesting to me is how you can really see the progression, or rather decline, of his mental health and how it's expressed through his painting, which I think is fascinating. Afterwards, I headed over to the east and went to a few different thrift stores. There's a whole area with a bunch of stores right next to each other, and there were so many cool things in each of them. Unfortunately, none of the things I tried on quite fit me, so I didn't come away with anything. But what was also amazing is that I stumbled across a cafe called Bakers and Roasters, which is actually a Kiwi cafe, which was really nice to come across, as obviously it's wonderful to be reminded of home. I then had an easy afternoon at the park before heading in the evening to a restaurant called The Pantry to try some classic Dutch cuisine such as croquettes and, sorry I'll mispronounce this, profiteries. I can't say that word. The food was decent but not quite as good as I was expecting. However, I found that the street stalls I went to over the next few days offered me some really nice Dutch food. It's very overcast today, but we're heading to the Anne Frank house, but obviously first food. So going to a cafe that I found on the northwest side this morning. The next morning I stopped in at Uncommon Coffee, which was absolutely fantastic. Definitely one of my favourite places I went to. A lovely space, wonderful staff, and I got a cappuccino and banana bread, both of which were phenomenal. way to the Anne Frank house, I stumbled across a vintage store where I actually picked up a couple of things, which was really cool, and I also came across an epic bookstore. Now, unfortunately, you're not allowed to film inside the Anne Frank house, but to be honest, this was really nice because no one was on their phone, and I do think it's a must-do when you go to Amsterdam, regardless of whether you've read her diary or not. After I was done, I went to Winkel 43 for their famous apple pie, which I do think lives up to its kind of online reputation because it was definitely one of the best apple pies I've had in my life. I then continued around the northern side, stopping at camera shops, thrift stores, and also picking up a Dutch classic, some herring, which was actually really good but may not be to everyone's liking. I also stopped in at the very digitally famous Van Staples cookies. They only make one kind of cookie here, and if that's the case, you know it's got to be good. It was €3 for one, which I kind of think's a lot for a cookie, but damn, it was a good cookie. The next morning, I headed back to Bakers and Roasters for a journal session. I really felt like I hadn't caught up with myself in a while and needed to do that, and being in an environment where it was a little bit more familiar kind of made me feel like it was a good place to kind of stop and have a look at where I was at. I also had been meaning to obviously bike around Amsterdam and went all around vondelpark and rembrandtpark. It was so much fun, and I really get the biking culture in Amsterdam after doing it myself. I think it's definitely something you need to do to maybe get a little more insight into the city. I then stopped at one of the street markets and got a stroopwaffle, which was absolutely phenomenal. The next morning I was heading through to Paris on the Eurostar, so I made a final stop in at a coffee shop to grab another cinnamon bun and a cappuccino before departing this wonderful city. Even after having been through most of Europe, Amsterdam remains one of my most favourite cities as it's simply so magical. I can't quite put my finger on what makes it feel that way, but there's so many different factors that just add up to make a wonderful city, which I definitely think is a must visit in your lifetime. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week in Paris.